Welcome on in here to Morning Kick Around. It happens every year, seemingly. A team across the United States shuts down, leaving fans and the community with a bit of a loss, obviously. And we just had one closed down just this week. So with this in mind, I brought on a special guest, Josh Pugh. He is the vice president of Lansing Common, and I'll let him tell the story of what they did up in Lansing, Michigan, when not only did a popular amateur team get replaced by a pro team that then went away after just a season. So, Josh, welcome into Morning Kick Around. Sorry to bring up bad memories, but we're going to get to the good part, I swear.
Morning, fellas. How you guys doing this morning?
Doing very well, Josh. Thank you for joining us. This has been Rob set this up. Rob invited you on. I'm glad he did. This is kind of dovetailing with some other stuff. I was just mentioning, I work on the radio. I do Sirius XMFC, and just yesterday I got a chance to talk to one of the founders of Edgewater Castle out of Chicago, and here you are, and it feels like we're talking about the same kinds of ideas in American soccer.
And it's a great, it's funny that you bring that up. I'm actually an Edgewater member. We really try to do everything we can to support other clubs who are also doing things, what we would say the right way, right? Like a really nonprofit, member-driven. You talk about it just before I joined. You talk about asking people for money to support soccer and support the community. That's what we're all about. And so love those guys, love what they're doing over in Chicago. Maybe a little bit jealous of the population density and the area that they have. But no complaints about the love and support that we've gotten from the Lansing community since we launched a few years ago.
So going back to the beginning, about 10 years or so ago, Lansing United, popular NPSL team, had famous battles against Detroit City FC, Grand Rapids, and the like. Kind of take us from there, where that story leads you to the birth of Lansing Common.
Yeah, totally. So Lansing United was a very familiar sort of story at that level of American soccer, in that the games were really out in a field, surrounded by some apartments and homes and one bar within walking distance. But it was really, it was special for those who were there. But if it was a new experience for you, you'd walk up and you'd be like, this is cute. But it wasn't, to paraphrase one of the owners in the Midwest Premier League, what we're trying to build is a place where people want to go on a date night. Right. And we weren't thinking about that at the time, because we were just a bunch of hooligans in our 20s who were going to the games and having a great time and watching others build something special, I would say. The supporters weren't married. It was still, although it was real grassroots and real small, I would say, with the benefit of hindsight, what it lacked was the control of the membership. Right. It was privately run. And the downside of that is when you get a millionaire from out of town who comes in and says, what I'd really like to do is take this professional. It's completely up to the ownership, right? The membership had no buy-in in that. And that's what happened. And so for many people in the community, it was a really, for everyone in the community, I would say, it was out of nowhere. For many people in the community, they didn't know that background with Lansing United. And so I would say two things about the founding of Ignite. Which many of our
the USL one team.
That's right. The first professional soccer team in the state of Michigan. Was that feelings were mixed among Lansing supporters, the diehards, I would say. There were some who dove in right away. Were in on the ground floor and were part of that first press conference, lighting off the smoke bombs. And there were some people that said, this doesn't really feel right. They're kind of taking this grassroots energy and turn it into something it's not. And the owner said, if we get to this certain level of attendance in this baseball stadium where we're playing professional soccer, we're going to feel really good about that, and we're going to take it another year. And this is 2019. And by all accounts, and by our own two eyes, and by all the reports, we really blew that out of the water. It seems, from what we can see from where we stood in the stands, it seems like maybe some miscalculations were made about what it really cost to run a professional soccer team. And it was not a money-making venture in year one. Now, of course, at the end of a season in 2019, if he had just hung on a few more months, he would have been able to say, the COVID pandemic, who would have seen that coming? But they shuttered the doors the evening of that final playoff loss at the end of the season. And that came as even more of a shock to those of us in the community.
Yeah, Josh, this look, I think most American sports fans are just kind of conditioned to want their local teams to be the biggest it can possibly be, to be the most, the most. It's just a way that we are kind of built as sports fans, and that kind of goes all the way back to how baseball was professionalized and then became these franchises, right? That's our model, and we are normalized to that. So what you guys are doing is kind of pushing back against something very deeply rooted culturally. Now, you said that, the soccer fans in Lansing may not have been on board with Lansing Ignite and going pro, but even that is like kind of unusual. So how does it, do you think it's out of soccer exceptionalism, or is there something else at work here?
Yeah, let me say a little bit more about that. So the community really embraced the club, and by the community, I mean the community at large. They didn't ever fill the baseball stadium with 11,000 fans, but there would be 2,500, 3,500 folks there on a weekend evening, and it was. However, that the base, that core of real diehards, were folks that never really, I would say, had 100% buy-in. We would come and we would sing the songs and we would do the chants and we would drink the beers, but at the end of the day, that's what created the conditions for Common to spark and grow. Is you had a little bit of, dare I say, resentment from those of us who were the diehards, who gathered at the brewery that had been our home base, and said that we want to do our own thing, and we want to make sure that we've got control of this, so that what happened over the course of the last year can never happen again, where somebody comes in and takes what we had away in service of creating something that they said was better. But the problem persisted where they just took it away again. And so that was where those conversations started about how do we create something that's universally positive. Maybe we don't have 5,000 people on night one, but we've got 100% buy-in across the board from those of us who really love the sport and love what it means for the community.
So part of this conversation stems from North Carolina FC, a USL Championship team closing down, and almost as unceremoniously, you said at Lansing Ignite, it was just the next day after the playoff game, just Dunzerino, and it was gone. North Carolina, they're in the middle of playoffs, same sort of thing. So things are probably pretty raw there. What is there any sort of commiserations or anything that you
can I just jump in here, Rob, since you're bringing up North Carolina FC? We do have a comment here. Mountains to Sea FC is trying to be the Phoenix club for NCFC fans. We've been around for a few years, won a championship, operated by 2 NCFC supporters trying to grow in 2026. And they hit me up on Blue Sky as well. So we'll reach out. But yeah, that thing, Josh, that feeling, you certainly know it.
And what I love about that is just the names say it all, right? Like, North Carolina FC, sure, yeah, that's a generic sort of soccer team name, but these guys said, no, we want to be something more. We want to really reflect what this state means to folks, right? Like, I spent a little bit of time in North Carolina. You don't need to spend a lot of time in North Carolina to know to visualize like the Smoky Mountains and the Outer Banks and all the things that make that state so cool and so special to the people that visit, but also the people that live there. And so I love that they had that. And I'll talk a little bit about where Common came from. It didn't come from our brains, right? Like we said at the very beginning, we're going to do real engagement and town hall meetings with the soccer community around Lansing, and hear from them on what they want to see out of this club. And that reflected everything from what the game day environment should be like to what it should be called. And so, when we got that first group meeting together, and the branding at that time was a transitory. It was a bridge. It was all gray, and it was a stand-in logo, and we called it Quality Lansing Soccer Club. And there's some local shout outs in that, but that was never going to be the permanent thing, right? We said we were very intentional, and we said that night, maybe 3 people are going to show up, and then we just scratched this whole thing, and we packed the bar. We blew out Ozone's Brewhouse in Lansing, and that was when we said, okay, we got something special. We've got a real opportunity to catch this spark and to do these community meetings and to bring people in so that it really reflects the Lansing version of that mountains to sea branding that I really like that those guys
Speaking
have.
of your branding, we've had a request for this, which is the logo, the crest explainer, which I've skewered these things many times over my career. Give us a little thought on the origin of, first of all, your badge, your crest, why it fits, and then this thing.
Well, I've already sort of spoiled it, which is to say that a lot of this came from the conversations that we were having with the community. And I've said community like 14 times, and so I guess I'm on message today, but that's something that's so important to us. And as you see up there on the screen, common is one of the roots of the word community. And so we wanted to come up with something that was really unique and really special, even if it does reflect some of the things that are held in common among clubs in American soccer, which is like, we're going to be an FC, we're going to be a football club. That might not be super commonly understood to folks that are outside the soccer community. But really, we're gonna give a nod to some of that soccer history, while making sure that we really reflect what it is that makes this community great and what it is that makes it special. And so you can see that. But then the other thing that you can see as you read through this is the appropriately optimistic yet snarky tone that we try to take with all this is also very reflective of the authentic voice of our community and of our supporters.
Yeah, some of the funnier moments is the sash, and you were talking about this could be a place where you put some sort of credo or motto, but you're like, in reality, it just the bird needed something to stand on.
Which is a T-shirt that we made that became sort of the credo or motto in year one as we were doing the build-up. And I talked a little bit about October 2019 was when Ignite folded. And so as we think about like, okay, what is it that makes that made this work, right? And I don't mean to make us sound like geniuses, right? Like we there was a not insignificant amount of luck involved in all of this, from the timing to the catching lightning in a bottle to some of the branding pieces that we pulled together. But one of the things that we decided early on was we were going to grow intentionally. And what I mean by that is we weren't going to grow too fast. And that was where we perceived that was maybe some part of the problem with Ignite, was that they bit off a little bit more than they could chew. And we wanted to be really thoughtful about the way that we grew and the way that we developed. And so one of our late 2019, early 2020 conversations, even after we embraced the branding and rolled that out for folks in the community, was do we want to take 2020 and think about how do we do this right? Or do we want to push from February, where we were standing, and hire a coach and bring in players and be ready to kick off in May? Well, the pandemic took care of that question for us. And that was a blessing in disguise, because we got a full year to think that through. Of course, we were able to get ready and roll out the ball in May 2021. We were still dealing with some restrictions for that very first game. We had to tape off seats and be really careful and thoughtful about capacity. And so we had a COVID sellout for our first game within the rules. And then by our second game, many of those rules had been lifted. And so we were still very careful about safety. But all of that came together to say, no, guys, take a beat, take a year, and think about how do you really get this right.
So, Josh, I mentioned talking to the guy behind Edgewater Castle, whose name escapes me right now. My apologies to him and his family. And one of the things I asked him was trying to figure out how you talked about, maybe Lansing Ignite bit off too much, and you want to be thoughtful about how you grow. But is growth always the goal? And
right.
How do you sort of think about what the future of this club looks like? And maintaining the identity of Lansing Common without losing the original idea, because they're going to USL League 2, which is a step up for them, still amateur soccer, but it's a commitment for them. And I imagine you guys have wrestled with these same things.
Sure. Well, for us, the real inhibiting factor in American soccer is how damn far away everything is in this country. And as soon as you start talking about flights and hotels, you've blown your budget out of the water. You're not talking about incremental growth anymore. That is exponential growth. And in USL2, the great thing about that is you don't deal with any of that unless you've had a phenomenal season. You're not flying anywhere until you get to a point where you are having a lot of success in the playoffs and doing things that are going to draw in that level of attention and that level of excitement that's going to allow you to sell it out and to start making real money. That it's at least is going to sort of defray some of those expenses. And so that's for us, like, we love where we're at in the Midwest Premier League because the fellas that help run that league, and of course Steve Beckman, LCFC secretary and founding board member, is the president of the Midwest Premier League. So we're deeply involved in that. But they share that ethos of really careful and intentional growth. And that's the limiting factor for us, right? Like, we're very fortunate that we've got a metro of 4 million people in Detroit that's driving distance to the east. And we've got a metro of another million people in Grand Rapids that's an hour drive to the west. And so we are also very fortunate that the metro area of Lansing, which is home to 500,000 people, we've really got that to ourselves right now. All right, there's a USL2 club that's in Lansing that has not really been able to get a ton of traction, and not really gone about things the way that we do. And so that has allowed us to really own the soccer conversation in the community, while being thoughtful about how we grow within the bounds that make sense. A couple of years ago, we had a trip to Milwaukee as part of the NISA Independent Cup. And that was really tough on the guys because that's a long bus ride past Chicago, around Lake Michigan, to get there and then play a soccer game, and then a long overnight bus ride. So the sun's coming up when you're getting back to Lansing. That's about the outer bounds of where we would want to be. And in fact, that Milwaukee, Chicago, conduit is where you see a lot of that Midwest Premier League growth happening in Chicagoland as well.
Yeah, Midwest Premier League, one of my favorite organizations that I've been able to contribute, or at least observe closer than others. And in Lansing Common, what a great story. Not only do they have one of the best badge explainers, but one of the best lower league soccer documentaries, The Common Game. Kyle Clayton did a great job documenting your 2022 season, and it really tells the story of your origins to a greater depth if viewers want to see that. But here in the here and now, you're in the summer soccer season, long break in between seasons. So what kind of things are you cooking up before 2026?
Oh, man. Well, as always, as we get closer to the holidays, we are going to be asking people for money. But one of the things that we do with that money and with that stature that we have in the community, we bring people in with the soccer, and then when we get them hooked on the soccer, we beat them over the head with the positive social justice message. And so we really try to use the privilege that we have through this game. We are lucky enough that we get to spend our free time organizing a soccer team in the summer. Like, how fun is that? How crazy is that? And so we take a lot of that funding that we raise and we use it to do good in this community. And so a lot of folks in our community and around the country right now are really struggling, need a little bit of extra help when it comes to putting food on the table. And so we have our early bird fund, which is through a partnership with a local coffee shop, has allowed us to raise money outside our normal operational expenses and give that to other nonprofits who are solely focused on their mission. They're not busy running a soccer team on the side. They're just doing the mission. And so for the final quarter of the year, the Greater Lansing Food Bank has received some support from us, and we're organizing supporters to go over there and volunteer as well. It's a real need in the community and, of course, around the country right now. And then we're gearing up for our season. For those who watch the Kyle Clayton documentary, you're going to get a real flavor of the story of every one of Lansing Common seasons. We consistently across our history have been the class of the league. We have scored more points than anybody in Michigan in the Midwest Premier League since our founding. That has never translated to finishing at the top of the table. We are always right there in second or third. And so whether that means tripping up at the beginning of the year and then making a furious run only to come up short at the end, we always make it exciting for our fans. Sometimes we run away. We look like we're running away with it. and then can't quite get across the finish line at the very end. And so that's going to be the story: is this the year that we finally put it all together and lift a trophy at the end of the year, and not just one of the fun rivalry trophies we've got with one of our in-state friendly rivals, but the trophy, the division of the conference. And so really excited about the team, really excited about Coach Brent Sorg coming back. He's retired from his full-time gig, and so this is it right now. But looking forward to the season, as always, looking forward to a fun season of soccer in Lansing.
This next question might cause us to run a little long, but just to wrap it up on the point of where North Carolina is and whatnot. So those saying that, like, the summer soccer is much shorter on a much smaller scale, but it's yours compared to, people that were supporting a second division professional team. Would you say that personal ownership on a smaller scale is more or less rewarding than that big professional scale, do you think?
Well, I mean, conceding my bias on that point, I think it's incredibly rewarding. We don't have to, when we worry about balancing our budget, we're not worried about paying ourselves out of that. We're an all volunteer board, and we're really driven by our members. We're worried about how much impact are we going to make in our community, and then what's the long-term sort of investment strategy and timeline, and what's that growth look like based on what we got in the bank and what we're able to do year after year. And so one of our early goals was to make sure that if something crazy happened, like a global pandemic, and we for some reason had to play a season without raising any revenue at all, which I don't know how that would work, but just a best practice benchmark for us. We want to be sure that we've got the budget paid for. We got all operating covered on day one, or even a little bit before day one, and we've been able to meet that year after year. And so that level of sustainability is a lot easier to do when you're not worried about paying yourself or what profitability looks like. For us, profitability is about the impact that we're able to have in the community, from the Greater Lansing Food Bank to partnering with folks that are providing housing or providing resources to those who need a little bit of extra assistance. And so there's a ton of groups in this community. We are very fortunate to have a lot of nonprofits who, again, aren't running a soccer team on the side, but are just focused on what they do best. And so we've partnered with a lot of those folks, and being able to worry about that as opposed to profit and loss has been really fruitful for us.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Josh. Josh Pugh, Vice President of Lansing Common. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your club with us on
Thank you, guys.
Morning
Cheers.
Kickdown.
Thank you,
so much.
Josh.